This video will cover steps to complete some of the Access Module 6 SAM Project 1A tasks. So I'm going to start with step 9. So I have the form open that was created in step 6. So now we want to add a subform to this form. So the first thing we want to do is in our controls, on our design tab under the controls group, we want to click that more option and make sure that our control wizards are selected. Those have to be active to be able to use the subform wizard. So now I can come back up here and look for the subform. So when I hold my mouse over the different tools, we get the screen tip, and on my desktop, the subform is the third one from the end. So I go ahead and select it. Now, notice nothing really seems to happen, but when you move your mouse down to the form, then you can see that your pointer has become the form, and that wherever you click your pointer, then is where your form will be located. So it does tell us to look at figure 2 on the instruction sheet to see the approximate location to insert the form. And it's just below this this phone control. So I'm just going to click there, and I get my little subform control and text box. But now I'm going to use the wizard to create the rest of the subform. Alright, so it asks us very first off if we want to use existing tables and queries, and we do, so I'm going to go ahead and click next. And now we can select the table we want to base this subform on, which is the trainer table. So I can scroll through my list and find the trainer table, and now we can select the fields. And those fields we want in our subform are trainer ID, first, last, and specialty. And so we can go ahead and click next, and it asks, or step C tells us to just accept the default, so we don't need to change anything on this step. And then on the last step we will change the name, so we want to put that FRM trainer subform, and then go ahead and select finish. Alright, so now we have that subform added to our existing form. And so step E wants us to delete the label associated with the subform. So right above our subform, see we have this label that has the subform name. So we can select it and just hit delete on our keyboard. And then step F says, if necessary, resize and position the subform to the approximate location shown in figure 2. So again, we want to base this on figure 2. So I'm pulling up my instructions and just kind of get a quick visual on how we want to have this placed on our form. So I minimize that. So I can see that I want to move this. So I need to select the form, and when I get my mouse over this form and it has the two-sided arrow, that's the one that actually lets me resize it. If you use the four-sided arrow, that actually just moves the whole form, and we didn't really want to move the whole form. Okay, so now it asks us to switch to layout view. So I'm going to switch to layout view. And it wants us to resize the trainer ID, first, last, and specialty fields to best fit. So to resize to best fit, we just want to click in here between the columns when we get that double-sided arrow. And then you may actually have to make your subform a little bigger to be able to resize that specialty box. So I've got this column selected over here, double click, and then I'm going to resize that again so that, alright. So now we can just save and close this trainer form. So go ahead and click save on my quick access toolbar. Okay, so now we're going to jump to step 12. And And so you should have the trainer's billing form open. And the first thing it wants us to do is make sure the form's record source property is set to table trainer. So to make sure that that record source is set, we actually need to see the property sheet. So we can click the property sheet, and then it asks us what our selection type is. And right now it looks like it's defaulted to auto header. So we want to just use the drop-down list, and we want to find form on that list. So now we have that switched to form, and you want to be on your data tab. And on the data tab, we see we have the option to change the record source. So again, we want to use the drop-down menu to change it to table trainer. All right, so that's all we need to do there. So now um, we want to add a combo box to the form header section. So in step, I think, 11, you added a header to the form. So now we actually want to add a combo box to that header. So again, we want to go to our controls, and you can hold your mouse over the different controls until you find the one you're looking for. And in this instance, it's combo box, and I found it here. So we want to add it to the approximate location shown in figure 4. So let me pull up figure 4, and let me see where we want to. So it looks like we want to place it about, we want to have our mouse at about the 5.5-inch mark. So I'll go ahead and select that combo box, if I can find it again. And I have the 5.5-inch mark here, so I'm going to come down and I'm going to click. So now I'm going to get the combo box wizard. So the combo box should find a record in the form based on a selected value. So we want to find a record on the form based on a selected value. So we want to make sure we have that third radio button selected, and then we can click next. And we want to select trainer ID, and then last and first. And we want to select next. So then it tells us do not hide the key column, so we need to make sure we uncheck that. And then we want to resize these columns to best fit. Alright, so we want to use the label trainer ID for the combo box. So by default it says trainer ID 1. I'm going to put that space in there and delete the 1. And then we can go ahead and click finish. And then it says if necessary, resize and position the combo box control to approximately match the location shown in figure 4. And you know, I think mine's pretty good, but I might go ahead and move it up just a little bit, and that didn't really work. So let's see if I can move it. Yeah, there we go. So I moved it up just a little bit. It looks like it's right at the very top of the form. So every time I do that, I end up resizing it completely. So yeah, there, I kind of moved it up a little more. Okay, and so now step H wants us to switch to form view. So I'm going to come over here to my view tab, and I'm going to form view. And it wants us to find the record for trainer 605. So we just want to come over here and try our combo box. So type in 605. And when we type in 605, you should see the record for trainer Angela Lorenzo. So now you can go ahead and save this form and close it. Okay, so now on to step 13. And on this step, we want to open the billing subform, and we want to change that to design view. So I already have it open, the billing subform, and I have already switched my view to design view. So now it wants us to add a calculated control to the billing subform footer section by completing the following steps. So the first thing it wants us to do is insert a text box in the form footer section. Okay, so right now I don't have a form footer section visible, so all I'm going to do is kind of click on the bottom edge of that form footer, and if you look on the instructions, and you can kind of see how big that footer is. So you can just kind of drag down about an inch, and that's about all the space we need, I think, for our footer. So now we have a visible working area. So now we want to go back up to our design tab, and we want to just simply insert a text box. So the first text box I'm going to add, I would just kind of want to put my pointer on the left edge of my form, and I want to put it on the 1-inch mark. I forget about that control box sometimes. So we want the control box to be at the left edge. Alright, so now that we have our text box here, it wants us to it wants us to enter an expression in the text box control that displays the total number of invoices presented in the form. So the calculated control should contain the count function and the billing ID field. So it gave us a hint. So to use an expression builder, we can actually open, if you don't have your property sheet open already, you can go ahead and open your property sheet. And you want to, the text box that we're working in now is text box 12. So if you don't have by default text box 12 selected here, go ahead and select it. And then you want to go to the Data tab, and in the Control Source row, we can go all the way over here to the Expression Builder. So this is these 3 dots. And now we can type in our expression. So the first thing we want to do is we want to use a calculated control that should contain the count function. So if we want to use some of the functions, we first have to go down to this expression elements, and I'm going to click the more option so I can see the list, and we know that the count function is a built-in function, so we can go ahead and click on built-in functions, and they're in alphabetical order, so we can find count. So just click it to put it up in our expression window, and then in the parentheses, that's where we actually want to put the field that we want to use. So I'm just going to click in those parentheses, and I'm going to start typing in billing ID, and it pops up here, so I can just double click it to select it. So now that tells me that the expression or the formula that I'm going to have in my text box will be the count for all of the billing ID fields. So we can go ahead and click OK. It puts it in here for us, and that's it. So I think we actually want to create another one, and so let's see. So step C tells us to set the property name of the calculated control to text count billing. So right now, by default, the name is text 12. So if we go to this other tab, click on the other tab, we can rename it. And here we can call it text count billing. Or it's TXT, count billing. And just press enter, and notice that it renames it up here in the text box name box, and it's renamed here. So alright, so the next step is we want to insert a second text box. So again, we want to go up here to our controls, click our text box, and again, we just want to make sure we line it up about where they have it in the instructions. So again, we want that pointer to be on the 1-inch mark. And so now I have text box 14. So again, we want to come over here to our property sheet, go back to our Data tab, and in the Control Source, we want to click on that Expression Builder. And here we want to enter an expression in the text box control that displays the total amount of invoices displayed in the form. So this time the calculated control should contain the sum function. So again, we want to come down here to functions. We want to look for our built-in functions, and we want to find sum this time. So double click sum. We want to make sure it comes up here into our expression window. Then I'm going to click in the parentheses where expression is, and I want to start typing in amount. And I see it pops up as a list of options, so I'm going to double click it. Now I'm just going to click OK. It puts it in my text box for me. And again, we want to rename this, we want to set the name of the property for this calculated control as txt sum amount. So again, we want to go to other, and we want to remove that text 14, and we want to type in txt sum amount. And notice that it's renamed up here again. Okay, so now we can go ahead and save and close this form. So I'm going to save it and close it. Alright, so on step 14 we want to open the trainer's billing form. So I'll go ahead and click it to open it, and I want to switch that to design view. So we want to insert a text box in the appropriate location shown in figure 4 on page 6. So if we go back to our instructions and we find figure 4, so this is the area we want to add our text boxes. So if we look here, we want to make sure our mouse is probably around the 5.5-inch mark when we insert. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and click on the control for insert text box, and I'm going to get it over here about to the 5.5-inch mark and probably closely lined up with trainer ID. Okay. Now it wants us to change the caption property of the label associated with the text box to number of invoices. So here where it says text 29, I want to type in number of invoices. So I can already see that I want to scoot this back. Let me click out of it. And I should be able to move this. I think I want it maybe right in here. And remember, when we're moving these, if we just want to remove the text box without the control box, if we grab that gray box at the top, we can just move one without moving the other. Okay, so now we want to add an expression that displays the text count billing control value from the billing subform. So this one you do need to think about just a little bit, because it says we want to add an expression that displays. So if you kind of think about something that displays the count billing control value, then you want it to be equal to the count billing control value. So again, we have this text box selected, and we want to come over here to our data sheet or our property sheet and click on our data tab, and in our controls source we want to click that expression builder again. And this time, because we want it to be equal to, we know that's probably in our list of operators. So if we scroll through that list of operators, you probably can find equals pretty easy. So I'm just going to double click it to get that in my formula or my expression builder up here. And then we want it to be displayed from the text count billing control value. So actually I started to type that in here. Rather than type that in here, I'm going to delete that. We could actually come back down here to our expression elements, and we can expand this trainer billing form, and then we should see our billing subform. So we can select that, and now we have this list of categories, and we can find the sum amount. We should be able to see the sum amount, text sum amount. And then we can double click that. It puts it up here in our expression for us, and we can click OK. All right, so now we want to add a second text box. So again, we'll go up here to our controls, click on text box, and then our mouse should have that text box appearance. And let's see, I want to kind of insert that about right here. And we want to change the caption property of this label to total amount. So on mine, it reads text 31 right now, and I want to change that to total amount. And now it wants us to add an expression to the second text box that displays the text sum amount control value from the billing subform. So again, we want to go over here to data. Oh, I don't have my text box selected. So in our control source, we want to click on that expression builder. And again, this time we want equal to. So we want to go to our operators, equal to, and we want the control value from the billing subform. So again, we want to click on that billing subform, and we want to find that text sum amount. Okay, so we can double click it to make sure it's up here in our expression window and click OK. And on this one, we actually want to set the format for this calculated control to currency. So this one, the first one we did is just a count. This one is actually a dollar value. So we want to go over here to our Format tab, and the very first option is Format. And when we click that drop-down list, then we can look through there for currency. All right, so we want to resize and position the calculated fields as shown in Figure 4. So let's see. I think I want these two. These two should be lined up. So I'm just going to move this one over so it's kind of lined up with my, and these two should be lined up. I think they're about how they appear in Figure 4. And then it says set the tab stop property for both calculated controls to no. So I want to select my text box, and when I come over here to the property sheet on the other tab, you can see the option for tab stop. Right now by default it's yes, and we want to just change that to no. And we need to do the same thing for the second one. So again, other tab stop from yes, we want to switch it to no. And we do this to keep the form from advancing to the next text box on the using the tab key. So that's it for this project. There's still another step. If you have questions on that one, feel free to send me an email or give me a call.